Welcome to the Mortgage Broker Podcast, tailor-made for Canadian mortgage industry professionals. Proudly presented by a Better Way Mortgage Group, this podcast is your trusted source for insider insights, market updates, and strategies to elevate your career in the ever-evolving world of mortgage brokering. Whether you're a seasoned broker with a Better Way Mortgage Group or an industry enthusiast looking to stay ahead, our episodes are designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools you need to excel in the Canadian mortgage space. We're back for another episode of the Mortgage Broker Podcast. Today it's just Derek and myself. We're going to touch on a key topic that we've been training on actually within our brokerage for quite a bit now, and it's been top of mind for many years, and it's around how to leverage video. A lot of folks are just a little bit lost when it comes to video, deer in the headlights, so to speak. And Corey Vance and I actually did a very detailed presentation on this. So if you're listening and you're in a Better Way broker and you want to access that training video, we go much deeper in that video and that training session. So definitely check that out on the intranet. But today we're going to touch on some key takeaways so just everyone can get something out of this. And with that, I'll start it off, and we're just going to talk about when and where to use video. So I'm going to kind of frame up the overview of this podcast here. We're going to touch on social media and some of the benefits and ways that you can utilize video through social media. Introductions, we're going to touch on that. A lot of folks have some pretty creative ways to actually introduce team members or introduce partners such as realtors and whatnot. So we're going to touch on some stuff there. Presentations has been key. So sharing planning sessions, resources, tools such as the Canadian Mortgage app, Lender Spotlight, Discovery type rate scenarios, really pretty unique ways to kind of share those types of that type of information with your clients. And then most importantly, probably one of the most frequently used ways to utilize video is signing documents, sharing signing documents with your clients, whether it's through DocuSign, Zoho Sign, or whatever digital platform you're using to send signing documents, and actually going through those documents with your client through a video. It's saving people an immense amount of time and adding a lot of efficiency to their business. So we're gonna wrap up with that. And some of the tools you might be thinking like, well, how am I going to do all this? Some of the tools that we utilize and recommended throughout the training session was Loom. Loom has been probably the most utilized software within our brokerage, and that is a screen sharing video software that you can use. It's very easy to use. We actually do a demonstration on our training session on that. BombBomb is a very similar type software that you can use. It pretty much does the same thing as Loom. So with both those softwares, you can do one-to-one video. So you can just have you and the camera on you and speaking to your client, or you can use the screen sharing ability and still having an image of yourself in that screen share. So one thing I'll touch on there is there is a free version of Loom, which we recommend Loom over BombBomb for that perspective. There's actually a free version that you can at least get to use the software and understand how it works and before you're actually having to invest money into it. So check out those. For MacBook users, QuickTime has a screen sharing feature as well. So if you're a Mac, don't want to spend the money, don't want to maybe download another tool, QuickTime has that ability as well. I still recommend Loom over QuickTime. And then last but not least, the phone. Just using your camera on your phone. A lot of people think they need high production cameras and videographers. The reality is just open up your camera on your phone and you can get a very, very good quality video that way, and just ultimately just get started. More than anything, just get started. I'll pass off to Derek, and we'll just kind of just touch on the first bucket, social media, and some of the use cases that we've seen to be successful within our own business.
In talking to a lot of brokers, that's definitely where people see the biggest and best use for video. Like, a lot of people want to get their social media game up, and it's hard. And where do you start? Like Dean just mentioned, it doesn't have to be very in depth, right? Like, if you're a broker, you could talk about what you're doing during the day, jump on video and talk about the application that you just took, talk about a scenario that you just had approved, talk about a challenging file that, maybe took a week and you ended up with an alternative lender, and talk about why. I think the goal with video or any content on social media is you're trying to capture a specific audience, right? If you're talking about a specific file, maybe an alternative file that you use stated income, and the guy got declined by his own bank, like, if you pick up one other person that's self-employed and might be in that situation, like there's a good chance that person's going to reach out, which is going to drive more business, right? I don't think a ton of people do social media for fun. I personally don't anyways. I think that like you got to have a goal of creating a social presence. And I think at the end of the day, it's because you're trying to drive more business, right? Like that's the goal. And outside of, educating people. So I think if you take the approach of like, doesn't have to be flashy. You should just, everything that you do should be trying to educate someone. You could do a couple, what does credit mean? How does a credit score work? If you're an employee, like how are we qualifying your income? Right? Like there's all these little basic things that majority of the public don't actually know, and it would probably be interesting for them to know. Little things like getting Google reviews. That's something surprisingly a lot of brokers actually don't do. They don't request. And if you can continue to drive Google reviews, like you should be sharing those on social media. You could jump on and do a quick video about the client, and they took the time to talk about you. It'd be a great 30-second video to talk about their situation and the feedback that they had on you and your business, right? So again, I think education's huge. Don't overthink it. Like Dean mentioned, you don't have to have, sorry, producer Paul, but you don't have to have a big glamorous video production setup and editing. Like you can literally just film a video on your phone and post it on Instagram or Facebook or what have you. I guess that would be one other thing to touch on is if you're making a video and you're doing a post, like don't just put it on Instagram, put it on Facebook, put it on LinkedIn, put it on TikTok. The more people that you can get viewing your content, the better, the more likely that, your name's going to spread and eventually it will drive business. I guess last piece I would touch on is a podcast, which we're doing right now. I mean, podcasts, if you're trying to be efficient and, maybe it is tough for you to jump on video and maybe you do want, a nice production and you just don't get around to it. If you're going to put time and energy into something, podcasts can be very efficient. That can create a lot of content. Number one, you do get a really, well-produced 10, 15, 20, 30-minute conversation about a certain topic that you're probably going to get views on. But if you're having the podcast edited, they can also pull out 5-10 clips from every single episode that you do. Like you could do a 1-hour podcast every 2 or 3 weeks and create content for the next month. So that's a really efficient way to do it. If you just don't have time or what have you, try to get a podcast going. And if you're a broker, you can bring on realtors, you can bring on financial advisors. It's a great reason to reach out to people as well.
Yeah, well said. I mean, you touched on a lot of topics. And one thing I just wanted to touch on is pretty much everything you mentioned there. All of that video content can be repurposed into videos that can be used on your website or videos that can be used in email templates as an example. So you touched on like, what should your credit score be? Like that's a question that comes up regularly. So think of, when you're thinking of content, like think of questions that clients ask you on a regular basis. Like, what should my credit score be? How much do I need to qualify for XYZ, or how much money do I need down to buy this single family home in Langley, BC, or whatever the case is? Like there's so many questions that come up. A lot of them are repetitive. A lot of times you may, I know I've had this feeling when mortgage brokering and thinking like, shoot, I almost feel like a robot. Like I've answered this question like 1,000 times. Well, any question like that, make a video of it, post that everywhere to like Derek mentioned, and then utilize that video in an email template or a resource on your website so people can have that same question, can watch that video. Kind of rolling into introductions, let's touch there. I'll start off with introducing a realtor as an example. So let's say you're making a referral to one of your real estate agents or vice versa. They're referring you a client. Think about setting up some studio time or even just some time, again, back with your camera on a little tripod from your phone or whatever it is. Just think of some form of a video that you can film to introduce that partner to your client. So let's say you're introducing Joe Blow, the realtor, to Bobby, the client. Most people will write up an introduction template, email, or what have you, include the video in there. So then the client can actually see Joe Blow, the realtor, and hear from them directly, and vice versa. That's going to make one, that's going to add a lot of value to your relationship with the real estate agent, that you're willing to go to that length to have those introduction videos set up. It shows that you're willing to invest time and resources into that relationship. But it's also going to set up the pass off to the client for success. They're going to feel like they know that person. They're going to feel a lot more comfortable dealing with that person. So consider that. That's a great way to utilize video. Yeah, I mean, Derek, maybe you can touch on like how we do that with client introductions as well. Like, as an example, like after a lead consultation call, you might have had a great call, but there's other ways to utilize that.
Yeah, I mean, a couple ways to go about that. Like a lot of times, what we always try to train our referral partners on was send an email introduction to the client. Like I think that's the best way. The phone numbers there, the client CC'd, like everyone's in one place. You can get a quick response out. Typically you're going to send a quick email response. Hey, great. When do you have time to chat? Taking 30 seconds to film an introductory video saying like, hey, great to meet you. Thank you so much, Mr. Realtor, for the introduction. Like, we're excited to work with you. As a next step, we're going to do this, this, and this, and I'm going to call you shortly. I think it's just a great way for, especially as things continue to get more and more virtual, and when most brokers are not meeting a lot of clients in person anymore, getting that face in front of them right away. They can see that you're a real person. You're not a robot. You're not just someone that is working in an office, and it just definitely brings a lot of personality to the relationship and the situation. Following that, maybe you just do get a phone call from a client, and you have a quick 10-15 minute chat. Following that, you could send a quick email. You typically on that first call, you're going over their situation, asking them a lot of questions. You're also explaining what your process is as a broker. And you got to keep in mind, for a client, that's probably a pretty overwhelming call, right? So just send a quick follow-up. And this could be an evergreen video as well, just saying, hey, like, great chatting with you. As discussed, here's a link to the application. Here's what's going to happen next. Walk them through your process in a short 30-second video so that if they didn't catch anything, or the call was overwhelming, or they're probably at work not paying attention, they can have something to refer back to. So yeah. And again, like, you overthink a lot of this stuff. Don't watch the video twice. Just film the thing and send it. Like it's probably 99% perfect. So yeah, I think that's the goal, is to make it a little bit more personal. And I think it definitely helps tie the relationship together.
Yeah, last piece on just an introduction idea is staff introduction. So if you do have a team, and let's say you have an underwriter or an assistant that helps you with document processing, consider introducing those staff members through video as well. A lot of us are working with clients virtually. A lot of brokers today say, especially since COVID, rarely, if ever, meet their clients. And then to have whoever their assistant is or what have you reaching out for documents, it might feel a little bit more comforting from a client's lens to know who that person is and what they look like. I mean, you're going to have far more retention with those clients, far more trust if they can actually see the human. So it's just back to like humanizing the client experience, and consider making an introduction via video. And again, those can be evergreen videos and that are just pre-filmed and utilized, rinse and repeat. You just keep using the same video of whoever it is introducing themselves, who they are, what they're doing, and how they're going to help the transaction. Goes a long way. So consider those ideas from an introduction perspective. And I mean, you can get creative here. You can go in all sorts of directions. So just some food for thought there. I'll quickly touch on just presentation ideas. So we touched on discovery and lender spotlight. So those are rate search features, policy search features, software that you can utilize, that I would say most brokers in the country are utilizing lender spotlight for or discovery for the search of an interest rate or policy. Let's say you've pre-approved your client and you have some options you want to share with them. Consider sharing a screen share of the visual of your discovery app or your lender spotlight app, and going into detail in a video of what you're trying to explain in an email. Goes a long way for some people, especially folks that are maybe visual learners, have a better idea of understanding what you're trying to portray to them via video or just visual verbal type communication opposed to email. This can be in preparation for a planning session. This could be a summary to a planning session. Very, very helpful from a client perspective to have that in both cases. A lot of times when a client sits in a planning session with you and listens to what your strategy and what your recommendations are for 30 plus minutes, hard to digest everything. So having another resource to fall back on to check on that is key. The other presentation item I just wanted to touch on was the Canadian Mortgage app. Within the A Better Way group and the DLCG, we actually have this app for no cost. So the My Mortgage Toolbox app it's essentially just a skin on the Canadian Mortgage app, and quite regularly, especially in rate drop scenarios, which hopefully we're going to get to soon in this market where rates are coming down, you can utilize the refinance analyzer feature on that app and actually screen share the report that you can generate from that app, and going through the application in detail, the report in detail of where the client's going to save money and ultimately why this should make sense for them. In the heyday of the pandemic and of 2021, when rates were dropping rapidly, and we brokered over 1,000 units that year, and a lot of the units that we funded that year were from this exact strategy, where we would actually build a rate drop scenario for a past client, film a video, and send it to them. And this was before having any form of conversation. We just saw an opportunity, sent them a report, and within 15 minutes later, we have a response. Let's move forward. This makes sense. So a great idea there. And even a simpler version of that is, let's say you just want to share some payment options with the client. Pull up the app, screen share, send them some payment options, explain why maybe it might make sense to go biweekly versus monthly, or whatever the case is. A great resource there to show value and ultimately get business. What I'll do is maybe pass it off to Derek just in regards to where we can kind of wrap up here. And I think probably one of the most utilized forms of video is sharing the signing documents.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone listening to this has ever gone through a signing package with a client, whether it be in person, over a phone, or Zoom, like we all know those can take 30, 45, 60 minutes depending on the client. And if that's what you're doing currently, and let's say you're spending 30 minutes with every single client explaining that signing package line by line, this should be able to save you probably 25 minutes per file. So you just jump on Loom or whatever the software is that you're using, have the signing package up. There's typically a little bubble with your head in it. And you just start at the top, right? Whether it's starting with MPP, commitment, disclosures, Form 10s, and walk them through everything line by line. Point out the stuff that clients are going to ask about, right? Why is the MPP payment showing higher? Because it includes property taxes. If there's a discount off of a rate with a TD approval, explain that maybe the prime rate is a little bit higher, and here's why. So those signing package videos are typically no more than 4 to 5 minutes. And I guarantee you are probably not going to get, maybe one of every 20 clients is going to come back with further questions. So just huge, right? Massive. I think that everyone should implement that right away. There's also not a lot of fear in that. Like, it's not, you're not coming up with content. It's not this big fancy video that, you're trying to remember your lines. You're just talking to something that and you're going to have that conversation anyways, right? So that's something that I would 100% recommend everyone implement right away if you're not doing that currently.
So some of the top brokers on that topic at our brokerage shared that they've saved almost 45 minutes per file by utilizing that technique. So going through that commitment, recording that video and sending it to their client has mitigated the need to have 45-minute conversations going through the commitment, which is pretty cool to see. Just the ability to increase your efficiency and time. So a great piece, and it totally makes sense to me why so many folks are using a video for that reason. So before we wrap up, in conclusion here, I just want to touch on some listener interaction that we've had. So I'll put Derek on the spot here. What is your advice on how to handle the question, what's your best rate?
I guess it depends where you are in the process. If that question comes up on a lead call, like, I would not be taking that file any further until you have a detailed discussion. And like, the answer to that question is simply, I can't comment on that right now because I don't know enough about your situation. And if I quote you literally the best rate that I have available, and then you end up not qualifying because maybe we need to use a different lender for rental policy or exceptions or what have you, that's a bad start to our working relationship, right? I've promised you something that I cannot deliver on. So there are too many unknowns and too many variables in that situation. I would always give someone a range. I'd say, currently a lot of clients are opting for a 3-year fix as an example, and they're coming in from, about 5.19 to 5.39, depending on the situation. Could be lower, could be higher. Also keep in mind, as a broker, we're working for you, and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that rate's as low as possible all the way up until 2 days before completion. Right. So I think you just tie it into like, I got to get your application. I got to get your documents as soon as possible. We can move quick, but if there's delays, it's probably going to be on your side because you haven't got us your paperwork yet. And, you really want to tie them into like wanting to get their information to you, get the app, get the docs in so that we can have the conversation about rates. Right. And I think it's fair to reference that, like, we don't know what's going to happen the next day, and rates absolutely could go up. And the sooner we get to that conversation, the sooner we can actually lock in a rate hold for you.
Yeah, it's well said. I mean, it's just a great opportunity to set the client expectation up for an under promise, over deliver type scenario. And just flat out saying that to the client in general, like, I want to over deliver for you, and this is how I'm going to do it. And again, like, showing, having that type of feedback and showing that you're prepared, you're going to put in the extra work, go the extra mile to make sure that the situation is just that. An over delivery is key. So yeah, we'll move on just to kind of wrap up. This was a great episode. So we talked about, again, just some of the ways to use video for and maximize video in your process. So social media and where to leverage certain topics such as questions that are coming up, introductions, framing introductions, showing value to your referral partners, setting up your staff members, your team for success. The unique features that we have when it comes to presentation and screen sharing presentations, such as Lender Spotlight, Discovery, Canadian Mortgage app. And then lastly, Derek touched on the signing documents and just saving a ton of time and increasing efficiency there. So we'll wrap up. Thanks for listening. For any of those of you that have feedback for us or have topics that you want us to touch on, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're always happy to jump into topics that are coming from you. And if you have any feedback, any questions you want us to address on the show, definitely let us know. We're happy to address those. Thanks for listening. Thank you for tuning in. If you found value in this show, please subscribe to our channel on your preferred platform. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Your support is incredibly appreciated. We also welcome your reviews and feedback, which are crucial in helping us deliver outstanding educational content. Feel free to share your thoughts. A 5-star review would be fantastic if you think we earned it. Lastly, a vital announcement about Backpack Buddies, our chosen charity for 2024. This remarkable organization addresses a hidden hunger issue many are unaware of. In British Columbia, while school districts provide meals during school hours, numerous children face food scarcity at home, particularly during weekends. Backpack Buddy steps in to support these vulnerable children, ensuring they have easy to prepare, familiar food for weekends. This is achieved through collaborations with schools and an extensive distribution network. Your contribution can make a significant difference. With just $20, you can give a child in need a food bag from Backpack Buddies, filled with enough meals and snacks to sustain them over the weekend and more. Once again, thank you for listening, and see you on the next one. We're here in the warehouse today. There's over 25 of us packing. The goal is to pack as much food as we can for the kids in the next 2 hours.
We are stuffing bags to help feed kids that don't go home with meals on the weekend.
I'm actually unpacking and getting the food ready for the boxes while we have a crew packing individual bags.
Hello, we are here at the Backpack Buddies. It's a great cause. We are super happy to partnership with the Equitable Bank.
Feels pretty awesome. It reminds myself, and I'm sure everybody else, how thankful I am that I have meals to put on my table.
Phenomenal cause. Our partners Equitable Bank are supporting. A lot of our brokers are in-house as well.
At the end, we have Jason packing them into bags of 5.
Super happy to be a part of Backpack Buddies. Awesome charity that the Better Way Mortgage Group is supporting. Super happy to be here, and yeah, let's get a lot of food out. We just learned a great stat that this actually feeds 6,000 kids a week all throughout BC. Amazing cause and a great day here.